That's
Yeah,
You can do that.
that's what most people do.
worked out good. Last night,
Unless you're
better than what
going
we've
up
done
a
before.
mountain.
It's a little
Well,
cozier
yeah,
too.
yeah,
If you're gonna build a house,
yeah.
you could,
Well, that's what he was saying. He said he just marked it, but not.
you could fire up that minimum quota. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one in the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we've got our caffeine break, back to a little discussion here about matching this. Essentially, you put a resistor here. In my case, it was a 4K ohm resistor. Set up my antenna analyzer and set my frequency to my first band. So you'd set it, you know, in my case I was trying for 40. I didn't quite get 40 meters tuned in, but I did get 30. So I'm starting off at 30. Adjust, you set the frequency of your antenna analyzer to where you want to zero it. And then you adjust this capacitor until you achieve a zero reactance so that you know that you're at resonance. And what I do is just put a little pencil mark or a little pin mark where the knob tunes in at that level. And then you just repeat it for each of the other bands. So I have the bands marked here, but I haven't really tested this, haven't had a chance to test it out on some other bands. I've got this set up for 20 meters right now. So. But that's the basic procedure for setting up where the band position should be on this tuning knob. For reference, if you use a different tuning ratio or different turns ratio, the resistance that you need to use for that calibration will change a bit based on this formula here. So then my final trimming, start with a dipole, the classic dipole antenna length formula. I came up with 33 feet on 20 meters. I'm using number 22 insulated speaker wire, so I'm not using anything really fancy. It's really fairly light wire. I cut the counterpoise to this length divided by 10, or about 3.3 feet. Attach both to the match box and set up the antenna in the desired orientation. There's a little trick there in that if you're going to tune this antenna vertically, for example, but then you set it up horizontally or you set it up in a different configuration, your tuning will probably shift a bit. So, you know, I set this one up vertically. I've got a setup where I can set that up vertically, and it seems to be working fine with it. Once it's set up vertically, it's repeatable. It seems to be very repeatable at that band. I mean, Cliff, how long did it take us to get that set up out there? I mean, we tuned it in less than a minute, didn't we? Right.
Say a minute.
So I can, you know, use an antenna analyzer to measure the frequency. Trim the wire down until you show zero reactance at whatever frequency you want to tune it at. Now, key here is that the SWR will drop as you trim, but you're not so much interested in minimizing the SWR as you are in achieving that resonance frequency. You want to make sure your reactance is zero. Even if your SWRs are 1.5 or 1.6, you're still going to run okay. But the key is to get it to resonance. So here's a look at the SWR as I was trying to tune it. And you can see I did achieve a 1.1 SWR. And when it gets to zero reactance, it tends to stay there for quite a part of the band, which is really nice because it tends to be a fairly broadband antenna. This is just an example of how I deployed it. I've got a 30-foot travel mast that I basically lashed to a hurricane fence post. The wire goes up 30 feet, and my feed point, you can see, is right at the ground level. My counterpoise is sitting on the ground. I wrapped 6 or 7 turns for an air coil choke here. I haven't talked much about the common mode currents that happen on an infit, but you really need to choke your coax in here, or you could bring RF into your shack or up to your rig. That can be a problem with infits. So since I'm running portable, 6 or 7 turns of coax, just quick bound on there seems to do a pretty effective job of choking it This is my portable rig setup. You can see part of it out here right now. I have a little solar system out here. I'm running with a couple of gel cells. I've got my rig, my amp, and there's the travel mast. This is the whole station ready to transport. So it's a fairly small setup that I can take out and run in the field on solar power. So
Yeah, let me back up a point.
I'm sorry?
Your common mode choke,
Mhm.
don't scatterwind it.
No.
It should be linear wound.
Yeah. Well, that's one way to, yeah, definitely.
Because if not, the first coil might touch the last coil and does you no good at all.
Well, that's true. I mean, you've got to take some care of the way you do.
Yeah, wind it linear.
Anecdotal evidence, but these were the stations that I worked during my initial testing. I took it out on a Saturday afternoon about a month ago, and I tested it with 45 watts on it. I made 16 contacts during the Washington QSO party, and I made 2 DX contacts into Brazil and Costa Rica on SSB. No real difficulty making contacts. I noticed that in the afternoon when propagation started opening up into Europe, I was hearing stations coming in very clearly from Europe. They were coming in. I wasn't able to really break any pilots because there were some big guns out there that day. I have noticing that the background noise is pretty low on this antenna. It seems like it's got good ears. I mean, I can really pick up some stations on this thing. Talked a little about multiband. So how can I make this antenna a multiband antenna? Well, the secret would be to use some links. Essentially, I break the wire up. If I'm going to operate on 40 meters, I have a wire that's going to be tunable to 40 meters. But if I'm going to run at 20, I can open up this link here, and now this is the only part of the wire that's actually going to be resonant. And likewise, if I want to run at 15, I'd open up this link here. So essentially, by opening those links and then changing my capacitor value, I can get this antenna to work multiband also without a tune. So it's fairly straightforward to be able to set that up. Just a little more time intensive for the first setup to, make sure you got your wire links correct and such. But it is a fairly effective way to make this work multiband. So the basic design goal, I think, was met, and it is easily deployed. We spent all of about 10 minutes getting the whole thing set up, and about 8 minutes of that was cliff pounding some stakes into the ground. So it is easy to build. It is low cost. It gives you a lot of deployment options, and they're fairly simple deployment options. So if you're going to work out in the field, if you're going to go out on field day, if you're going to work national parks, this antenna would be really simple to set up. There are some future work I want to do. I want to get these links set up. I do want to redo the matchbox to reduce the stray capacitance. I think I've got a little bit too much stray capacitance in my wiring, which has reduced my tuning range. So I really want to get 40 meters working on this thing. So that's one of the things I'm doing. Now, while we've been talking here, and since we set this up, we've been running Whisper. And been running 20 meter Whisper. In fact, we're transmitting right now. And those are the stations that we've contacted in the time we've been out there, including Australia. And that's on Apple One. So,
No, leave there for a second.
yeah.
What time period is that, Rick?
From the time we set it up out there,
About the last hour?
about the last hour.
Question I had was on the,
Cliff's hearing
Yeah, but I'm not. Wow. Oh, wait a minute, no, this is 20, right?
This is
Not
20,
40.
yeah, this is
Okay.
20.
If you went to 40, I'd be here.
Let's see.
Cliff has to hear everybody because he's number 3 in the world now. We gotta bow to him when we go near him.
So that antenna heard that BK station, but so I heard that station, it didn't hear me, so just to give it some reference. So.
do you have any idea what the angle of radiation is off of that?
Should be whatever you get off a vertical of the same.
Just a regular half wave? Okay. The other question I had is on that counterpoise. The counterpoise you show as being like 3.3 feet for 20 meters, but if you go up to 12 meters, do you have to shorten it or just leave it alone?
Well, you should, but really you don't have to. You really don't have to for this kind of, I mean, theoretically you wouldn't want to change it to a bit of a longer one, but I think in practice as long as
It's
you have
only
one.
like that long.
I think in practice it doesn't really make much difference.
Okay.
But I know if you take it off, it does not.
Anybody else have questions?
Well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brian Miller from the National Weather Service has a brief announcement he would like to make for us.
Thank you, Cliff. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Miller from the National Weather Service, and you probably recognize our call sign WX5PRO. I just wanted to remind you that this year, once again, we'll be having Skyborne Recognition Day, which should be running from 6 p.m. December the 2nd, Friday, until 6 p.m. Saturday, the 3rd of December. It's 24 hours, and those of you who are familiar with that know that it's basically an open house where you can come by to the Weather Service office and operate our equipment, try to make some contacts. It's done across the entire National Weather Service. It's recognition of camp operators and our partnership together. So hope to see some of you come by. I know that Jerry and Cliff have both stopped by, and maybe some of you have also, I don't know, but you're welcome to do so this time around. So, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone